To be clear, I did like this last block of episodes, but also, boy, am I relieved to have one less thing to review right now. It's been too much stuff. Andor episodes 10, 11, 12. Yeah, I think so. So this is the last block of episodes for Andor, and it is the end, not only of the season, but of the show. And I am going to try and go through it episode by episode a little bit more than I have done. I don't think I've really bothered to do that at all. We sort of open with Luthen, finding out the information that, they've kind of been coming up close to up to this point, which is the construction of the Death Star, and him, we don't see it happen, but we know he kills his inside man. He has Klaya run, and he gets confronted by Dedra. I like their confrontation a lot, because you can tell Dedra has been she's been dreaming about this. So I finally catch you, and he just knew it was coming. He knew it was coming, but he's not really going to give her the satisfaction. And not just because he attempts to end his own life, but, just the things that he says to her, he's not giving her the satisfaction that she wants. And he really takes it away from her when he does that move. And there's a good tension and buildup pretty much all throughout that. And then when we get to Klaya and what she does to get into I'm going to talk spoilers. You should know that by now. For her to get into the hospital just by herself. And I always knew that she was going to kill him. I actually saw some people say oh, I thought she was going to rescue him. I was like, why? Well, that literally never occurred to me, that she was going to try and rescue him. There was no way for her to get him out. There was no way that was ever the plan. And just watching her go about that, because Luthen instilled in her not only the values, but the necessities, the things that have to be done. And we see the flashbacks. And the thing is that if you told me in advance of this that there was going to be a lot of flashbacks, and we're going to get a lot of background on Luthen and Klaya's relationship when she was a lot younger, I would have gone, really? Do we need that? Having seen it, yeah, we do. We get a lot of instilling in both her and also to the audience, a little bit more of his philosophy, because we've certainly seen the man that he has been over the course of the story, but we get glimpses at him becoming this, him being under the Empire and needing it to stop, needing the pain and the evils that he was helping commit to stop. And there was something really powerful about that moment with him and her in this nice place, and they're just eating, and he has that detonator. And he's like, don't look. And he sets it off, and he's like, now look. And he had really, before that, he had instructed her, take in the beauty of this place. And rather than shield himself and thereby shield her from what they were going to do, which I think a lot of people would do for the sake of, their own sense of self, Luthen's thing has always been, I am not a good person. I am not going about this as a good person would do. And I'm also not hiding from that fact. I am confronting the reality of what it is I'm doing, because I think it needs to be done. And he does the same with her. He has her look at the destruction of something that was beautiful, that he did, and he knew would happen. And then they leave. That whole building up of the two of them was really well done. And I already liked those characters, but it's always an interesting choice to add this extra kind of backstory when one of them is, on their deathbed already. So you kind of already know where all this ends, but no, it worked. It worked really well. We get more K2. Not a ton. Probably about as much as we could get away with without kind of stepping on the tone a bit. But I love K2. And him just straight lining it into that building. And just every time an Imperial soldier tries to stop him, just knocking them aside, throwing them into the ceiling, into the wall, to the ground, picking up that one guy and just using him as a shield. I love K2. I love K2 so much. Damn. That was good stuff too. I really enjoyed that. And so Dedra and her ambition that had gotten her so far, that had made her so useful to the Empire, she wasn't useful anymore. And that very ambition was used to undo her. And she ends in, I don't necessarily believe it to be the exact same prison, but in a comparable prison to the one we saw in the first season. Because that's what fascism does. You are a cog in the machine, and the instant you start to gum up the works, the instant you are not perfectly fitted to your function, you are gone. Not only are you gone, you are replaceable. That is the thing about being a cog in the machine. Cogs are easily replaced and swiftly replaced. And it's not just her. I keep forgetting his name, but the old guy who was like the head of ISB. Him too, and he knew it. He knew it, and that's why he took himself out. He knew he was just as replaceable as Dedra, as anybody. He knew that. He maybe had been trying to dance around that fact in his own head, but somewhere he knew. And I think that's all just really important. I think it's worth remembering, for anyone who ever looks at systems like this, systems of oppression, systems of coercive power, systems of fascism, the people who are serving those systems are not safe, nor are they happy. They are just as disposable as literally anyone else. Everyone can be chewed up and spat out, except whoever's at the very top. And I think that's well represented through all this. The last episode was really low key, in a way that I found kind of interesting, because this is not only the season finale, but the series finale. And it's of a show that has had some decent action beats as it's gone along. So you'd think there'd be something larger scale. But no, it's the aftermath. It's, how they move on to the next step. It's a lot of it is kind of setting up for Rogue One. And I think they made an interesting choice because they were kind of in a situation where there were two competing interests. There's the standard way, you end on something big. And there's that, or there's you just set up Rogue One and accept that that's your big finish, which is more or less what they did, and I think makes sense, especially when you actually stop and think about it for a hot second and realize way more people have seen Rogue One than watch Andor. Andor is really good and quite successful, but people have seen Rogue One. They know how this ends. You don't have to force an additional climax just because the true conclusion to this story is something we've already seen in a movie. And there's good balance in sort of the finding of purpose that Cassian clearly has done. And the other thing with the head of ISB, I really like him listening to that manifesto from the first season. That it's clearly broken containment and it's gotten out and they're hearing it. It's being heard so many places now. They can't stop it. It's spreading because it's true. Good stuff. Real good stuff. And also kind of poetic that they're wondering who do you think wrote it? They'll never know. And also ultimately it doesn't matter because the ideas are more powerful than the name of the person who wrote it down. So That's all really well balanced. I'm not going to disagree with criticisms. I've heard some criticisms of Bix's storyline and kind of her being sidelined and some issues in the way she's being handled. I don't disagree. They kind of do. While there are still women in the story who hold positions of power, they do kind of send Bix off to go and be safe while the man Cassian kind of takes care of stuff. And I'm not going to argue against those criticisms. I am going to say that I personally liked the closing shot of her with a kid, especially in contrast to Cassian going off and going to die. Like, we know that. The show knows we know that. And it's necessary. And it's something that needs to happen. But as important as fighting isn't the only thing that's going on. It can't be the only thing that's going on. We fight for what is necessary, and we lose people along the way. But life also has to just continue. People have to keep living. And that's what I felt was represented by that closing shot. And I liked that. For me, that landed well. So yeah, I don't know how much else I have to say. I feel like I should watch Rogue One now, actually. I don't know if I have the time. I have too much stuff to do, but Andor. Season 2, last chunk of episodes. Yeah. I liked it. It was more low-key than I expected, but in a way that felt good. What'd you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living, even if you can't help me out that way. Like, share, subscribe, but don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Quite Bearish, Zubin Litfulla, Mara G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Andre, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. And also Toka Blue Hoovian, Auntie Kate 808, and Tracy Scrabbit. If you'd like to hear me try and pronounce your name correctly while these guys chitter in my ears, check out the reward tiers on the Patreon. Yes, I hear you.